Hello, good evening, everybody. Happy Super Bowl Sunday. Just finished watching the Super Bowl and pretty good game. But just wanted to make a video tonight. Really, just thinking about my time, really diving deep in the memory bank of memories. Um, Thinking about how it was to be a kid in Zion. How was it to be a kid in the World Mission Society Church of God? Um, yeah, let's delve deep into that. I think just me jotting down some notes on what exactly I want to talk about. It felt like a really good therapy session. I'm jotting down some notes, just going into my memories that I have as a kid in Zion. But yeah, as you guys know, I was baptized in 2003. So I was I was born in 96. So I was like 6, 7 years old, right around that age when I was baptized. So 6, 7 years old, I was actually going into the second grade. Yeah, I was going into the second grade. I was living in Inglewood, and the summer before going into second grade, we made our first trip to Zion. Dun dun dun. Yeah, so all I remember is we were driving for quite a while. I wasn't really used to long drives like that. We pretty much stayed in our own little area in Inglewood, California. Um, yeah, we didn't really travel much. We were very local. Family was local. School was really close. Friends, everywhere it was just really close. So we're driving on the freeway on the way to Zion. It's probably late morning, approaching noon, and I just remember we're just driving. It's about an hour drive from Inglewood to Sunland, California. First LA branch. Um, we drive and I'm just looking outside. It looks so much different. It looks like a like a desert out here. It was, it's August. It's summertime. It's hot. It didn't really get too hot in Inglewood. We're right by the ocean, so we always felt the breeze. And it was at the warmest. It was 80 degrees, high 70s in the summertime. So I'm thinking we're just going out to Timbuktu and this place. My grandmother, she was driving, and I remember her saying that she was lost and like, okay, so what are we doing? She's lost, but she ended up finding her way to the location, to the church. It was located in a it's like deep in like a neighborhood, um, in Southern California, just deep in the neighborhood. A lot of houses, just very, very like in an urbanized type area where it gets really hot. But yeah, so we got there, and like I said, I just remember it being so hot. Um and we get out the car, and the deacon who invited us is right there. Like, he's standing outside waiting for us. So yeah, at this time, this is like my introduction. These are my first impressions. Um, seeing a lot of Asians. I'm seeing a lot of. I didn't know what a Korean was at the time. At the ripe age of 6, all I knew was like Chinese culture, like karate, things like that. Wasn't too familiar with Koreans. I don't even think I've heard of that word before, to be honest. When that at that age, um, so I meet I meet a really good friend. I don't want to say his name. I don't know if he wants his identity to be out there. He's also a former member. He no longer goes to the church. But I meet a friend, and me and this dude Like he was probably the first dude I met, and we hit it off like right away. Like I brought some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I had like my grandma got me this like booster pack for some Yu-Gi-Oh cards when I was a kid. It had like 9 cards or whatever. I didn't have a complete deck. Those for those of you that know what Yu-Gi-Oh is, I don't know. But yeah, I had like about 9 cards. You know, I brought them, had them in my little pocket or whatever. Um, and yeah, we were just, we just hit it off right away. He had like some Gundam toys or whatever. Like I was like, whoa, that's cool. So we kind of we started that bond like right there. He had been a member already for like a few months with his mom, who had who had also attended the church. Um, but yeah, I made a really good friend. I also met some other cool, you know, friends that were my age, younger than me, a little bit older than me as well, and they welcomed me with open arms. I don't have any complaints on that end when looking back. But yeah, from this point on till I left in 2018, especially in that phase of being a kid, it was pretty much all I knew. Everything that was being taught, um, from the way to pray to the prayer of our wishes, memorizing mother's teachings and whatnot. This pretty much became all that I knew. At my young age, my mind was still a sponge, and everything in between the morning hours to the evening hours on the Sabbath day, that became our lives. Like, talking, my grandma changed, we had moved, like a whole bunch of other stuff happened, and we were just fully committed from the get go. We didn't really miss any services. But yeah, my life pretty much revolved around the church, and it was everything I knew. I had no conception whatsoever of what a cult was, a legit church, none of that. So from just thinking back, I'm thinking, we had a busy schedule. If you were a kid, or if you're a working adult, you, you're busy 6 days a week. You basically only got Sunday to try to chill. Um, but yeah, you're always busy from going to school, throughout the week, having to go get ready for third day, right? We got this hour drive to go to church on third day. And then, bam, Friday night comes. What's Friday night? Preparation night. So you're making, as a kid, the things that we were preparing, I was making sure my book bag was straightened up. I had my Bible all nice and neat, my new song book. I had made sure I had everything that I needed, which was a Bible and a new song book and a notebook and a pen or pencil to write notes, because notes are required. But yeah, so that's basically what it was Friday night. I'm thinking, man, I just finished going to school. As at that age, I'm in second grade, and this is all throughout school. This is all throughout the me being in school from grade 2 through 12. It's Friday night, and while all of your other friends have, nothing really to look forward to the next day, or they're having some cool event, or they're going out to like a theme park, whatever, I still gotta get up early. I gotta get ready in the morning, and I gotta look forward to going to church. To be honest, as a kid, I had to stop many times. And even I felt guilty for it. I had to stop. And I don't know if you other kids, you other former members who were kids in the church can relate. But after a full week of school, I didn't really enjoy school that much. And then knowing that you have a full day ahead of you, and you're not really gonna have any free time for yourself until you get home after the evening worship. Who knows how long after the service my grandmother is gonna stay? She usually stayed long. So we was chilling inside and we was chilling in the sanctuary, chopping it up with, our little friends and whatnot. I would actually start I would this around this time I was talking to adults as well. There weren't many kids around late at night. So I was around a lot of adults, and I got to meet some very cool people, you know, who have known me for a very long time. Yeah, very cool people, very cool people. But yeah, it was, met some really good people during those. Had some interesting conversations even at a young age. Like, just thinking back at it, the environment, the vibe of the church, it definitely felt close knit. It felt like a family oriented kind of. It was not in the way of, because they still encourage you to not be with your physical family. I'm talking about the family of the church. Like, the people in the church were close. Like, we used to have pool parties, and pastor would come over. Like, that would never happen today. That would have never happened in the later years, but very early on, I remember being a kid, we would have a pool party at Diane's house. Literally, she lived down the street. We'll go to a pool party over there. We're blasting new songs and whatnot. We're chilling in the pool. you know, and pastor would show up, and he'd be eating a hot dog. He'd be, with his slacks and his polo shirt on or whatever. Yeah, no, those were interesting times. Those were definitely some interesting times. Um, just some quick hitters. I would bring, I would try to sneak a Game Boy. I would really try to sneak a Game Boy. Very rarely though, very rarely. I had a Game Boy Color at the time. I was really big into Pokemon, and yeah, I was really big into Pokemon. My friend that I told you guys about earlier, that I was really close with, he was a Pokemon trainer as well. And there was all the other kids. We liked regular things. You know, we liked playing video games. We liked all that stuff. Um, but at the end of the day, it was shamed upon. Um, but yeah, let me tell you guys about what goes on in a full day, a Sabbath day. So, like I said, we already went through preparation day. Now it's the Sabbath day. You're getting up early, you're getting ready, right? Sometimes we'll have breakfast, sometimes not. So the first meal of the day on Sabbath usually was at lunch, or we would have like a little snack, like a little sweet bread or something after first service, or ramen. I used to microwave up some ramen pretty often. Um, yeah, so that would be breakfast for the most part. If we were lucky, we got to go to McDonald's, get some sausage McMuffins. If we were lucky, that was once in a blue moon type thing for us. But yeah, we will arrive in Zion, right? We'll drive a whole hour, so we have to leave early. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, we had to get up at like 6, and we're out of the house by 7, and we're getting to church by 8. Right? We're usually a whole hour early, and then by 8:30, right? We're starting to go into the sanctuary. We're sitting down. We're praying, and I'm making at my age, I'm making my way to the back of the sanctuary. Or for a time, they had us set in a little room. It was still in the sanctuary, but it was a small room in the back, It had like a window, a glass window, and a door for you to go in and out. Um, so we had audio in there. We had speakers, from the announcer, right, singing new songs to pastor giving the sermon. So when you come to Zion as a kid, it doesn't matter if you have all this energy built up. You must stay quiet. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. If you are in the sanctuary, do not run and stay quiet. As a kid, that's two main rules you're following right from the get go. And so we're sitting in a sanctuary. We're waiting for service, right? And so we start singing new songs about around 8:45 a.m. We're singing new songs, and of course we're supposed to sing with all of our heart and our soul and our mind and our strength. So I'm from an early age I had actually started singing, and I got into it. Later down the road, I joined the choir. I was in a few quartet groups. We did some performances. Yeah, so I actually enjoyed this gaining the skill of singing. I didn't really know what I was reading, what I was singing. Actually, you get you get the gist of it, but my vocabulary is very limited then. But yeah, so we're singing these new songs, and that's just what's going through my head. I'm just enjoying singing the new song. And yeah, I mean, because you can't really do much, you can't really say much. So singing was kind of enjoyable for me as a kid. I don't know how it was for you guys, but that's how it was for me. So yeah, we would sing, and then we would open the service. I believe it was with a silent prayer. And then, of course, the announcer says, it basically commands everybody to stand up. And so once everybody stands up, don't take too long to stand up right away type thing. Like the military. So everybody's standing up, and the announcer chooses another new song to sing, right? This is the new song we're singing to open the service up, So we sing a new song, and then usually the speaker, which for us was for the most part was a pastor. So pastor would go up, and we're still standing, and open up with his own prayer. So he would pray, and he would open it up basically with just an opening prayer, just praying that we gain much understanding from the word of God and whatnot. So yeah, once that prayer is over, we sit back down. And I'm thinking, as a kid, I'm thinking, okay, we're basically standing up for like 15 minutes. I'm glad that I'm sitting back down. But yeah, so at that point, the speaker starts giving his sermon. And there's one particular pastor, I'm just going to say his name, Pastor Daniel Park. Sue me. just kidding. He would give the longest sermons. I know Tony on the Pit Pod, she probably has experience with this. Chad, you too. He gave the longest sermons. However, being a kid, we have rules we have to follow. There was a structure. There was a really strict structure for kids keeping service. Number one, of course, sitting up straight. We have to sit up straight. We have to. No sleeping. Make sure you are singing loud. Pay full attention, because the angels are watching you, right? Do not think worldly thoughts. That was like a big word, worldly. Do not think worldly thoughts. because God is listening, right? God can hear your thoughts. Basically, if your mind is on the world, this service doesn't count. That's how they taught. But yeah, that's how it was. And during the sermon, so as the speaker is right giving his sermon, we had to take notes. It was a requirement. Remember, I said during preparation, I was getting my notebook, putting that in my book bag, because notes were required. You were required to take notes, and I'm not kidding. Each notebook you would fill up, you would get some type of prize. It was like fill up your notebook. You would want to fill up your notebook as fast as possible. There were literally prizes for having notes. It was like in a little composition notebook, right? Old fashioned, those black and white composition notebooks. Just fill it up, right, with notes during service. And for whatever reason, they incentivized that. But we had to take notes. We had to take notes. Sometimes our leaders would look at our notes, to make sure it wasn't just a bunch of BS or, I'd like to doodle. When I was a kid, I used to like draw. I used to like draw like Dragon Ball Z characters or, things like that. I was young. I was in second grade. I enjoyed that type of stuff. I used to doodle sometimes. But yeah, that's how it was. Every service, I'm telling you, every service was like this. And there were punishments. There were punishments for sleeping, for not sitting up straight. Especially if you're sleeping, you'll get pinched. You would have to hold books. Like, they would make you stand up and hold like two Bibles, one on each hand, and have your arms stretched out all the way while you hold up the book. I've had to do the invisible chair in the middle of service. Smelling salts. Yeah, I mean, it was, especially when it came time for the afternoon service. Oh man, I'll get to that. So yeah, this is how we're keeping service. This is how we're keeping morning worship. We're taking notes for like 2 hours because Pastor Daniel liked to go on forever. Apparently he had all these. He went all deep all the time. He would share the most profound truth, right? But yeah, that's how it was during service. So once pastor stopped, once he concluded his sermon, right? God bless you, right? Thank you for listening. Now the announcer comes back up and we're singing another new song. So we're singing another new song, the closing new song. Typically this new song would have some type of relation to what the service was about, right? Something like that. And then we would end it out. After the new song was over, another speaker would go up to the podium for the closing prayer. This was usually like another deacon, another leader, right? A deaconess, a missionary, anybody, As a kid, I even saw my grandma go up there a couple of times, and me, little elementary school me, I was like, yeah, that's my grandma. Yeah, but no, that's how it was. Closing prayer, which would sometimes people had the longest closing prayers. They didn't know when to stop. Like some people went really, really long, too long. Some of those prayers, it was fighting to stay awake. I'm fighting to stay awake during this prayer. But after that, the announcer would come back up. He would have a couple of announcements, right? If he had announcements. And then we'll close out the worship with the prayer of our wishes. When I first heard this, my eyes were lit. I'm looking around. I'm like, whoa. Like, I'm thinking, is everybody speaking Chinese right now? Like, so it was a weird. I still remember that experience. Like, I still remember that all these years, 20 years later, I still remember this, and that was my first thought. But yeah, that's when I first heard what a Korean was. But yeah, so after the early morning, not the early morning, the morning worship concluded, then it was usually time to, maybe get some snacks. I'll heat up some ramen probably. I'm getting a cup of water. I'm going to use the bathroom. Because then we got class time. And we got class time. Usually it's about 10 to 15 minutes after first service ends. So during class time, we're doing Bible studies. The leader is presenting a Bible study. We're practicing the prayer of our wishes. We're practicing Mother's teachings. We're trying to memorize. We're trying to memorize the prayer of our wish and Mother's teachings and the Ten Commandments. These are the main things that we're trying to remember as children. Repetitive. Every week. I would say that again. Every week, this is something is being regurgitated over and over and over and over. Mother's teachings, prayer of our wish, Ten Commandments. So, it's basically early programming to these little sponges. And that's what it was, You were incentivized to memorize everything. You get a little prize. You get something from the vending machine. With every meeting, with every class time, not to mention, there was always an opening prayer and a closing prayer. All right, so after class time, usually then comes lunch. So class time would be probably like from 11 to 12, 10:45 to 12, 10:30 to 12. However long the service went, that's usually, it was like around 10:45 to 12, and 12 was usually lunchtime, like always on the dot at noon. We would hear the bell ring, and then we would get dismissed from class, right? Closing prayer. And I'm just ready to eat. I'm starving. I'm so hungry. So we have lunch, I'm full. It's every Sabbath. I had a good meal to eat. I'm hitting that food coma. So usually after lunch, we usually had like a video. We watch like a video or a movie. Very early on, when I first joined, we used to be able to bring a VHS tape of whatever cartoon, that we preferred to watch on the Sabbath day at this designated video time. It did not last long, but I personally remember bringing things like Pokemon, Scooby-Doo. Other people brought Sailor Moon. Like Yu-Gi-Oh. Oh, man. But yeah, this didn't really last too long. I just remember it happening for a period of time, short period of time rather. And I thought that was really cool. Just that was like a memory that popped back up in my head after a while. So after video time, afternoon worship. So video time was after lunch. So from like around 12:45, 1 o'clock till 2 o'clock, when you would have to start getting ready for service. So every meeting, I'm talking from the kids up to the adults, whatever meeting that they had, it was over at 2 o'clock. Because the following service, over at 2:30 rather, 2:30. So at 2:30, everybody's starting to prepare for afternoon worship, which was at 3 p.m. So same thing. Start singing new songs. At 2:45, we're sitting in the sanctuary. We're sitting in our designated room, and we're doing the same thing over and over and over. What I just said for the morning worship, same thing, same exact thing. So after the afternoon worship, it was So sometimes it was playtime. We had like a little playground. We had like a little basketball court. So we actually had playtime. Early on, early on. Later in the later years, they changed this to make it more, more Bible studies, more videos, more class time, whatnot. But back in the day, we used to have playtime. We used to be. I loved playing basketball. I was going on the swings. I was jumping off the swings and stuff. This is very early on. For a couple years, we even did taekwondo. There was a deacon, a third degree black belt in taekwondo. This man is legally a weapon, and he taught a group of us 20 kids. I got pictures. I probably put them up on the screen right now, but yeah, we used to do taekwondo. We learned it. He taught us some pretty valuable stuff. Some pretty valuable shit, man. Discipline. It disciplined us, and I see that it was a great positive. That was a time that would never happen nowadays, like ever. But looking back in the early years, when it was like the Koreans were trying to conform to us rather than us trying to conform to them, like how it is now. So we got to do some pretty cool stuff. Like, not only did we do taekwondo, but Pastor Daniel Park actually like bought a water slide for us kids. And one summer, we got to spend the night in Zion in the kids' room. We were like watching movies. We had ice cream and stuff. So it was like, that's what I remember. Like, I have some good, fond memories. Even though it wasn't the ideal childhood, I still have some fond memories, and some of these people I know till this day. Like, we grew up in this together. But yeah, like, so after the afternoon worship, not to digress too much, but yeah, we would, play time, or for those few years we did taekwondo. So dinner time came, and it's like, man, I am starving. So right, we eat dinner, and then from dinner time, after dinner was over, then it was like a little activity like choir practice or something. Like, we back in the day, we actually had like a little kids choir. Like, we sang in service only a couple times. It wasn't that much. We would sing like twice a year. It was like a really special thing, It was really cool. But yeah, we would have like a little choir practice and whatnot, or it'd be like another video. We'll watch like a church video for the most part. It'll be like a church video around this time. And yeah, evening service comes, same thing. Same thing. No variations. No variations. At this time, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do when I get home. I am not focused. For the most part, I am not focused on what is coming out of this man's mouth. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do when I get home, what I'm going to watch on Cartoon Network. I'm thinking about what video game am I going to play, what Pokemon am I going to catch. This is my mind. Thankfully, and I thank my grandmother for not being super strict on me. She ain't, like, because I had other relatives and family members get me, like, gifts. Like, I got a PlayStation and whatnot. My mom got me this Dragon Ball Z Budokai game when I was a kid. I didn't know what Dragon Ball Z was at the time. That's how I was introduced into it. But she bought me that game, and I played it. I played the shit out of it. That was like the only game I had for years. Not for years, I'm exaggerating. For months. Literally months. And I was like super obsessed with Spider-Man, so I got this like Spider-Man game. Oh, it was like, I'm thinking about this stuff in service, and I'm feeling so guilty about it. But I'm literally thinking about what I'm gonna do, or if I had got permission before service to go sleep over at my friend's house, we would, talk about, not during service, of course, but we would look forward to like playing games together. We would play card games, we would play board games. Yeah, yeah, it was really cool, really distracting thoughts. Distracting. This is what I'm thinking of in the middle of service, and I'm just going through the motions for years. Just thinking back at it, I'm just going through the motions. You know, evening service is over. We'll get our little announcements again, and everybody's going home. You know, in the beginning, we would stay a little bit for a little bit afterwards, and then we would drive on home. Pastor Daniel Park would be right out there saying goodbye to everybody. He was you know, he wasn't like a bad dude. Before he seemed pretty genuine. He was you know, he showed us some love. I don't know if it was genuine, but he showed us some love. My grandmother had surgery in those early years, and she was at Centinela Hospital, which isn't too far from where we live in Inglewood. And like she had surgery, and Pastor Daniel came down and with his wife Kwanzanim, they came down, gave her some flowers and stuff. That's what I'm telling you. It was really close knit back then. It was like they would show up. They wanted to come over and cook a meal for us. It was like that. They were really trying to win us over. They were really. I could really see that, and it's nowhere near like that nowadays. Except when I first went to Seattle, that missionary he and his wife offered to come over to my apartment and to cook us a meal. Yeah. We'll get into that later, in those later years, in another episode. But yeah, it was time to go home, and I'm just so ready to go home. On Saturdays, I built this bad habit. I'm staying up so late because I'm like, I don't want to go to bed. I don't want to go to sleep. I don't want it to be Sunday already. I don't want to have the feeling of dreading school the next day. So I tended to stay up. My grandmother let us stay up, watch cartoons, play games. I'm kind of glad she let me do that, or else I would have gone crazy. I don't know. Maybe she understood that at an early age, kids can't really be restricted like that. And some were restricted a lot more than I was. I think I got it pretty good. My grandmother wasn't too strict until the later years. My teenage years, things got dicey. But yeah, in those early years, it was mainly that was a vibe. That was how it was. But when it comes to having friends, how this experience affected me, as a kid in school, most importantly, I had zero motivation. I had no motivation to go above and beyond. Usually people will have that one teacher. They'll have a couple teachers that they remember and they respect greatly because this teacher gave them, some type of motivation. Gave them a spark to thrive in school, and I just never got that. I never got that vibe from any teacher I had because I just wasn't focused. I always did the bare minimum. No one ever checked to see if I was actually doing my homework. A lot of days I missed my homework, So I was that kid who did the bare minimum, but I felt isolated. So as a kid, and you're being taught these things, right, in this doomsday cult. And so, I really felt isolated, especially during the holidays. Halloween came around, Valentine's Day, I could never participate. They'll have an event. They'll do they'll have something going on in the auditorium for a special event. And I would have to go into the classroom next door, and I'll be working on a math worksheet or something, or something super random. But yeah, I just felt isolated. I felt like I didn't have much in common with the other kids. You know, of course, some things we did have, in common, but they were going out and doing things. I have friends that were going out. They were playing sports. They were on a little sports team playing football, basketball. You got kids going out to theme parks throughout the weekend. They're going over to the carnivals. They're going with they're going with other friends in school. And so I kind of felt like outcasts. I had friends, but not close friends. I had friends, no close friends. My close friends tended to be the ones that were in church with me. Those were my closer friends. Even though I was with my friends more in school, for whatever reason, the friends that I had in church that I saw twice a week, once on Thursday evening and the other on the Sabbath day for the full day, for 12 hours, I considered them my closer friends. Which is interesting looking back at it. But yeah, I guess because we had the most in common with each other, and I had there were like little kids in Zion who went to the same school as me as well, and we kind of all just felt like outcasts. Like we wanted to fit in, with all the kids, but it was hard at times. Really interesting thinking back at it. But yeah, there was lots of times where I just wanted to neglect school. Thinking that the world was just gonna end like very soon. The way Pastor Daniel preached, he had you thinking the world's gonna end tomorrow. Like I always think we'll be discussing future projects and assignments, and I'm thinking to myself, why am I even worrying about it? We're going home. We're going to heaven. So yeah, that's it created some bad habits in school. I had terrible study habits in school. Like I said, terrible, like a lack of motivation. Yeah, it was just like just thinking of a lot of memories just popping up. You know, just really felt isolated. It's tough. Thinking back at it, it's tough because you don't feel like you had that full experience of being a child. You didn't have that full experience of having fun on the weekends. After school, and then worry about going to church every time. But yeah, I thought the world was gonna end, so I'm like, just went with the flow. Yeah, pretty much just went with the flow. I was encouraged to read church books more than regular books. When I was a kid, I used to love Goosebumps. I used to love reading Goosebumps, Animorphs, books like that. But I'm encouraged to read the church books, the truth books, and the sermon books. I'm encouraged to study the Bible more, but my sinful pleasure was playing video games. And at that time, in the back of my mind, I'm always feeling guilty. So for years and years and years, I'm feeling guilty because I like playing video games. There was a period of time where I sold my PlayStation. I had sold my PlayStation. I had no games. I had no video games. So then I would like to go to my friend's house and we would play video games. My only opportunities to play on like the latest generation of consoles was at a friend's house. Like all those games, those latest games at the time, like I never got to play anything. But yeah, and then social media came about like around middle school, high school. MySpace was a thing. Brothers and sisters were getting rebuked for having a MySpace. Like it was funny. It was a funny and interesting time. But yeah, that's how it was, just being a kid in Zion around those early years. And I would imagine it being tougher nowadays with more restrictions. The church is still Probably they're growing, but who knows? Who really knows? I'm pretty sure like they just have a terrible retention rate, honestly. Terrible retention. Like, I made a lot of friends in Zion being a kid, but like there were so many times where I'd meet a kid, they'd be coming for a minute, for a year or whatever, and then I'd never see them again. Like, they quote unquote fell away. There's a lot of that, a ton of that. But there was a core of us that stuck around for years, into our later adult years as well. Yeah, that's basically what I got for now. If I have any additional thoughts, I'll share on a different episode. But yeah, that's pretty much how it was being a kid in Zion. Let me know what you guys think, and if you're listening up to this point, I appreciate you. And hopefully I can catch you on the next one. Like, comment, and subscribe. And this has been your average cult survivor. Quick ad. I have created a new Discord server. I called it Flee from Zion. If you guys have any other ideas on what to name the server, I'm open to them. Feel free to comment down below. I'll include a link to be invited to the server, so you can join the server, in the description below. Feel free to join. I have some cool plans, cool things I want to do on the server. Maybe just a lot of ideas. I have a lot of ideas I'll share later on. But yeah, feel free to click the link and join the Discord server. Pretty easy to use once you get used to it. And yeah, again, this has been your average cult survivor, and have a good evening, everybody.